the Benchracer's Guild podcast.
How many races have you been to in a giraffe? That's
0,
probably,
but it's giving me good ideas now.
We're making jumps out of manure piles and stuff.
If you stay alone there at night, so the coyotes are gonna attack you.
I've always told everybody, if you can't fix it with a hammer, you have an electrical problem.
And now, your hosts, Alan Delman and Adam Swanson.
Hey, so welcome to Benchracer's Guild. It is now 2023, and we are back in the saddle, I guess you'd say it. Took a little bit of time off just because, I don't know, admittedly, we were slacking off a little bit, and there wasn't a ton to talk about, but we are back. I'm here with Adam.
We're lazy.
And I also have Chris with me, too. You guys know Chris.
Yeah, what up, everybody?
We were doing like these long form interview format things where we would talk to people, and we even did that with each other, which if you heard it was around this time last year we did that. But now we're gonna try something a little bit different in this episode, and it may or may not work. I'm really not sure, but we're gonna give it a shot. So I mentioned previously that we have a bunch of lists of people we want to talk to. We also had a list of topics we wanted to talk about. So we're going to take a crack at that in this episode and see how it goes. So you've heard us talk about dual sports, right? And we review them and we talk about what we've done at them. We never actually talked about what one is. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. So we're going to talk about dual sports and kind of all about dual sports, I guess you could call it. Guys in their 40s talking about dual sports, if you want to call it that. With the disclaimer that this is specific to our region. So and when I say our region, I mean Western New York, the Northeast, Southern Ontario, Ohio, I guess dipping into the Midwest a little bit. So if you're listening to this in California or Arizona or Montana, your experience with dual sports may be different. And with the other obvious disclaimer, this is just stuff that we know and we may be wrong. But the good news is we're the ones with the microphones, so that makes us the experts. Benchracersguild@gmail.com if you think we are wrong. Also, Benchracer's Guild on Facebook and Instagram. We don't have a Twitter, and we don't have a TikTok or a B-Reel, at least not yet. So, but maybe we'll get into some of that stuff. So,
However, we ended up in the top 50% in the review for last year.
Top 50% on Buzzsprout. We were in the top 50%. I can only imagine what the bottom 50% looks like. But, it's cooking with I don't even know. I was trying to work on the fly.
Dish with D.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to add the Chris Brodnicki disclaimer too, that even though I'm going to be shit talking about some motocross tracks. My friends do own them, and I have friends that do race motocross. And I mean nothing negative towards them during my shit talking.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point to start on. I know that some of our friends are probably listening to this and it's an interesting point to start on. We might say things about other forms of riding that make it sound like we're trashing them. We're not. It's just a different experience for different people. Not everyone has to go to BJ's to buy the 18 pack. Sometimes you just want a different experience and you do that. So
we just listened to y'all's show. What's up with that fucking Brodnicki guy?
that fucking guy.
So I guess we'll get cracking on it initially. We'll just get into dual sports instead of rambling back and forth, although that's fun too. We do that in person all the time. So let's talk about what a dual sport is. I guess I can go first, and then maybe I'll let you guys, or actually I'll let one of you guys go first. Screw it, because I've been talking for 5 minutes. So somebody talk about what they think a dual sport is.
I think a dual sport is a gathering of old men that think that they're as fast as they used to be and like to ride over their heads. Occasionally they get hurt, and sometimes they make it through, and then they all eat hefty amounts of calories and salt for the rest of the day.
That's very concise. All right, how about Chris? How about you?
A dual sport, I guess I would call it life after motocross.
Yeah.
When you're just too busted up to ride motocross and doing the jumps, you don't have to sell the bike. You don't have to hang your gear up. Come out to a dual sport ride. It's not a race. You don't have to feel that pressure, like somebody's going to pass you and you have to, accelerate as hard as you can. You can do that. You could do it for 15 minutes if you want. You could do it all day if you want, or you could just take it easy and do a nice little trail ride. And if you want to push yourself, you could do that. And then you get a nice little break when you come out to a road, and you could take the road for a little bit, take a nice little breather, and then head back into another trail, and then, pedal to the metal wide open again. And that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have things called options if you want to test your skills higher and possibly struggle or feel like a hero for, a few minutes, then that's an optional sections to dual sports, which we'll talk about later.
Accurately called a hero section.
Hero section.
I think. Yeah. So to me, I know that I think you guys kind of covered what it is. And I think it used to be, this is what I was going to get into some of the stuff that we had written down our outline, but it used to be that it was like dual sport. Like you were riding bikes that were on the road. You were riding bikes that were, you were basically like a dirt bike with like kind of on-road, off-road tires. And you do a lot of riding on the road. You do a lot of riding off the road. And I think a lot of it used to be a lot of on the road. I think a lot of that has switched to adventure rides, which are different. That's more like dirt road type stuff. And for that type of stuff, the bikes that were good for it then were bikes like the Suzuki DRZ 400, the Honda XR650L, the Suzuki DR650. There's a myriad of XR/DRZ/KLX bikes that have been out through over the years. And those bikes are usually street legal, and they had tires that were DOT legal, and they had mirrors and a horn, which is actually a really handy thing to have when you're riding trails with a group of guys. Unless you have cardo. 200
extra pounds.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Yeah. So they had all that stuff, and they were heavy. And now it seems like a dual sport, at least the ones I've done, and admittedly I've not done as many as Chris, but so he knows a little bit more with us than we do. But they seem to be a little bit more of like a trail ride with just sections of road in between. And so I don't know if those older bikes, let's talk about that. So right now, would you guys agree that they're like sections of road or sections of trail with road in between to connect them before I get into something else?
Yes, and the trail usually you're about a 60% trail to 40% road mix, thereabouts. And your trail can vary from like tight single track to double track to kind of wide open field transfer sections and gravel road into dirt road, and then sometimes some pavement.
Yeah. The thing I always think of is the Micho Dual Sport in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, that's put on by Del Val Trail Riders, which is in August again this year, by the way. But anyway, that's when I think of where you start, because you're not near the forest. You're 10 miles away from the forest. You have to take the road to get to the forest. And once you get to the forest, you're on mostly dirt. You're basically dirt road and trail pretty much the entire time, until you have to go back to town, and then you take the road back. And an event like the Monkey Butt, I think, is probably what I described as, connecting the two, connecting the road and the trail and all that stuff. So I think that's about right. So,
and I'd like to expand a little bit on the whole different definition of a trail. You might come across some people that have been, trail riding, and their idea of trail riding is riding some quad tar trails next to a canal for like 5 minutes. Some wide open, just some straight boring stuff. And that is definitely not the case. And it varies from event to event. Sometimes you do ride some quad trails, but there is a lot of single track, and there is some really gnarly stuff that you can also do as well. So it's not like your typical, you're going down to the rock quarry and ride some ATV trail type of trail riding. This is like some legit
100 miles a day.
100 miles in a day. And that's it. And it takes all day. I mean, you could, 6 hours at least, and they usually throw like a free lunch, free lunch, something that you don't ever hear of at a motocross track.
Right.
So it takes all day. And by the time you get done riding, in that 6 hours, you are absolutely shot. And you just want to have a quick beer and go to bed.
Yep. Yeah, and then sometimes you go, if it's a 2-day event, you go back and do it all over again a second time.
Yep. And it's not really the same trail. Well, depending on the event and who does it, but it's typically not the same trail that you ride all over again. It's all new stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So if we're thinking about bikes, like, and we're doing this, and we obviously know the answer, but this is for those who don't. Like, if you're thinking about bikes like the DRZ 400 and the XR 650L and the DR 650. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, those bikes may have been good for, the adventure riding type of stuff. They are probably not good for this type of stuff. And I kind of want to just talk about why. Because again, like, if you're new to it, like we know because we've been doing it for a long time, but if you're new to this topic, you're like, well, why couldn't I just use one of those? So I can start off by saying, I don't think I would want to use one of those. The biggest thing on those is, well, there's two things that really like would turn me away
Number
from
one,
a bike like
you
that.
may kill yourself.
Yes, exactly. So there's actually three. I can think of three things that would turn me away from something like that, but I'm gonna just say two of them and see if you guys fill in the third. I think that the weight of those bikes is an issue for sure. I mean, they're pretty heavy. And I think the suspension on those bikes is another issue. And yes, I'm aware you can spring suspension, and you can make suspension for a guy who's 350 pounds and races A-level motocross if you would like, right? But I think to me, the biggest things on those bikes is the weight and the suspension, because I can fix the suspension, but I cannot fix the weight. So I don't know if there's anything I missed, but I don't know if you guys want to jump in.
You're basically looking at a
Go ahead.
dirt bike with light. Well, you're looking at a dirt bike with lights and a horn. Like you explained earlier, it's still going to have to be street legal, but you're looking at a street legal dirt bike is what you're looking for.
Yeah, but I was trying to get into why, because I think that's what I was kind of trying to do. So I think that the biggest thing is the weight, and the second biggest thing is the suspension. And I don't know if Chris, you were going to chime in on that, so go ahead.
The heavy bikes are definitely doable on some of the easier rides if you're a decent rider. The problem is these events, you get noobs in there and they think they could take their DRZ 650 because it's a dual sport bike and they think they could ride it. And, they're going to have a heart attack trying to pick their bike up for the fifth time in the first 20 minutes of the trail.
Yep.
And it's, it's doable on that bike, but it's a lot easier to do it on a dirt bike that's kind of made to fit in the criteria for street legal with having the headlight and tail light. And there's that gray area that you're going to have between a DRZ and like a KTM, a two-stroke KTM with a headlight and tail light, which is still technically street legal, but you fall into that gray area.
Yeah. So the third thing that I thought of with a bike like a DR, and I'm talking about stock, not heavily modified, about like I go to Hollink in Spencerport, New York. I buy a DR 650, which is where I'm getting this weight spec from. Thanks, Hollink. Anyway, and the bike is 366 pounds, which is quite hefty. And that's probably, I don't know if that's a dry weight or what, but 366 pounds is a heavy beast. Even for a big, tall guy like me, it's a heavy beast. And the other thing is that aside from the suspension, that's like basically spare pen springs from the Suzuki office, is that the tires on it are not really set up for that kind of riding, I don't think either. So like they're okay for adventure riding, they're okay for the street, but like I don't think I'd want to be going down some of those uphills in the monkey butt with stock tires on a DRZ, even if it's dry. It's still kind of be like, kind of sketchy. So
you're going to see, if you're not used to doing a lot of like off-road trail riding and events like these, you may think that you're a little bit over your head. So you're going to you definitely want your bike to be set up correctly for something like this. So we could definitely talk about, just besides suspension, tires are huge. Tires and how much air or pressure or inner tubes you're running.
Yep, that's for sure. So we kind of talked about what these events are now. They're like real trail, and they're real single track. And I don't know if I missed anything else there, but I think that pretty much covers it, right? We can maybe go through like an event like Misho and kind of see like, actually there was one other thing I want to talk about first. Sorry.
That one's a little bit rockier than some of the other ones we
Yeah.
do. That's a little bit different.
Yep, but it's a lot of the same, like, single track. Like some of the stuff in Misho was hiking trail. It's actually a hiking trail. Like if you were to go down there now, you could hike it. You freeze your ass off probably, but you could do it. But you can't ride it. It's only certain times of the year. And a lot of the monkey butt is like trails that guys have on their property, but it's again falls into that like connecting the trails with the roads type of stuff. But while we're talking about bike choices, because I kind of wanted to go through this a bit. So let's say I have like a YZ250, right? and I put
it's like the perfect trail bike right there.
Yeah. So and I want to ride a bike like the YZ250 on the and I'm asking this question, I already know the answer. Obviously, my opinion on this bike is well documented, but I want to ride my YZ250 in the dual sport event. Is that a good idea? And if so, why not?
I've done it, but mine was definitely, it was set up for Northeast Hare Scramble racing. Yep. So it was a little bit easier transition, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want your arms maybe like 6 inches longer, I would recommend that YZ250 for the trails. Yeah, definitely. Because you're going to be hanging on for dear life.
Yeah,
the only friend is that how light it weighs, really.
Yeah, and that's grossly over. I mean, I obviously knew the answer to this. That's grossly like overshadowed by how much the power is just going to destroy you. And even your bike that you referenced, Adam had a 99, which was the older motor, and it was kind of detuned, and it had a heavy flywheel weight on it. I had an 06 that was stock. I hated both of them for the same reason. So even a detuned like YZ250 is not really. You certainly could do it if you have the talent to do it, like Joe Celso rides them, and he does fine with them. So if you're an A rider who's been riding for, close to 40 years, probably not a big deal. The rest of us that are mere mortals, though, I guess it would be pretty tricky. So the final bike I'm going to talk about is, again, something that we know the answer to. So how does what do you guys think? Actually, we'll do it this way. What would you guys recommend that would be a bike that if somebody was starting out new, and let's just say they had a budget to buy a new bike, maybe we can go around and kind of say recommend hey, what bike would you recommend if I want to do a dual sport? And I actually had this conversation with somebody, guy I adventure ride with. If I have a budget I can afford a new bike and I want to buy a bike that's good for this kind of dual sport stuff, what would you guys recommend?
You're going to see a sea of orange for a reason, because besides the numerous street legal models they have, you're going to see a lot of 250s, 300 two-strokes, 350s, and some 450s and 500s thrown in. But every single one of them is weighing under 250 pounds dry weight for a reason, because you're going to be throwing this thing around in some nasty terrain, and you don't want to be picking it up off the ground when it's that heavy and et cetera, et cetera. You want to be nimble, because even though you're on the road in some sections, a lot of it's tight stuff. It could get nasty, especially if you're doing the hero sections. Some people do ride their vintage bikes, but they're vintage bikes that are specifically made for old school enduros would be definitely fit in with this kind of terrain.
Yep. And the thing I think that like we talked about the weight of the bikes, and I'm pulling up specs here just to reference, so a 2023 KTM 300 XCW, which is probably one of the best bikes you could use for something like this, weighs in at 228 pounds. That's dry weight. So you figure you add, I think it's 7 pounds per gallon of gas. So add 15 for gas, but you're still under 250. For a bike that you're gonna be able to do all this stuff all day long, and you're gonna be able to ride it all day long because it's light. I mean, that's the bike that Chris rides. So
if you're an old dual sport guy, you basically don't want your bike to weigh any more than you do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that depends on how big you are, I guess. But sure, that's a good frame of reference, I think. So.
And trying to answer what is the perfect bike to do this kind of thing? That's a hard answer. You really have to. The bikes are $12,000 now, so it's not like you're going to be buying a bike for this kind of riding, another bike for that kind of riding. So you got to really think about what
Yep.
you are looking to get out of the bike. Like if you're going to do some dual
Mhm.
sport rides and maybe like an easy trail ride, but then you also want to commute to work, then you might be looking at more of like a DR 650 or, if you're not doing that many road miles, even a KTM 500 would be great. But then
Yep.
if you're going to start getting into, serious racing and like enduros, hair scrambles, and then you want to, dabble into the dual sport side of it, then you're going to be looking more of like a two-stroke type of thing, or even a 450, like an XC KTM 450 that you can get plated for the road. So there's
Yep.
quite a difference in bikes, but you really need to sit down and think about, what you're going to be doing the most with it to determine what kind of bike you're going to be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went through that. Well, you guys know, obviously, because we talk all the time. And I bought the 2018 KTM 250 EXCF as a leftover. And I was like, great, I could use this on the road. And then like I did it, and like the tires aren't counterbalanced, and I put off-road tires on it, so I don't really take it on the road anymore. I bought another bike, and I use that to I take that on the road. And like I don't even have mirrors on my bike anymore. I took those off. I still have the signals on just because the switch is there. And those actually come in handy in a dual sport 2 along with the horn. But like, I don't think my bike passes inspection anymore because it doesn't have all the parts on it.
I would suggest, if possible, ride a buddy's bike that you might be interested in that he suggests, and then think in the back of your mind, can I ride this bike 6 to 8 hours in a day without it pulling my arms off and exhausting me?
Yep.
And for 100 miles.
It's exactly how I bought mine, because I rode yours and did exactly that. Almost word for word. So
Yeah.
It's advice that we have actually followed.
And no, your Honda CRF 250L dual sport bike with the anemic engine, the crappy suspension, the crappy power, and the absurd weight is not a good dual sport bike. I don't care if you don't have to change your oil for 10 freaking hours or 10,000 miles. So fucking what? A quart of oil is like $10 or $20, whatever. Just change the fucking oil and ditch that stupid ass CRF 250.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Your point is made strongly, but your point is well taken. That
as
falls
well
into
as the
same,
tires that come on it.
Yes, that falls into the same category as a bike, as like the old XR or the old DR. It's probably not built for the job. Our opinion. If Honda ever wants to sponsor this podcast, my opinion can be bought. So.
And I've tried to ride. I've rode an event with these stock tires that come on some of these quote unquote dual sports from the factory for what they have to have on there to sell them. And I tell you what, you might as well sell them to an adventure ride guy, because you will hurt yourself on these tires. That
Continental TXC 80s. I had them on my
have
bike
a pair. I sold them.
I rode
Those
it
were
once.
the ones.
I rode it once and I was like, yo, this is not good. And I think I immediately brought the wheels to your house and we swapped them out for real tires. Because it's just they don't fly. One good thing, if you really want to, there are DOT legal knobbies. I did the DOT legal knobby thing one time. I put a set of the hell were they? Pirelli Garrett crosses on my bike.
Those are good.
And when those wore down, I was like, I'm just going to put whatever I want on this thing. I don't ride it on the road. I don't get it inspected. Who cares? And so I put just whatever tires I want on it now. So we're all cool there.
There's this mentality with some of these newer dual sport riders that do these events that they seem to think that they need these DOT tires.
You don't.
And they end up on the ground all the time. Nobody's going to be looking for the DOT stamp on your tire. And you don't need DOT to ride on the road for these events. I mean, what is harder to ride? The single track going up this gnarly hill with tree roots and rocks where you need traction, where you want a nice gummy tire, or are you going to be riding for the 5 minutes on the road that you have to have this freaking DOT tire on? It's stupid.
Yeah.
They need to get rid of this mentality.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because I don't know that a lot of people do know that.
But do use your signal on the road if possible.
If you have signals, bro.
Don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But
it's also fun beeping the horn at each other in the woods.
Mhm.
As
That's
And
you're
then all the
riding.
spectators, the landowners, always beep for the landowners' kids.
It's one of my favorite. I love beeping at people. I even beep at people having the horn, and I know my next bike probably won't have one, and it's a little bit of a bummer because beeping at people. I beep at people on the motocross track at Hogback. They're usually like, "What the hell? Did somebody just beep?" Because you're not expecting to hear a horn on a motocross track. People who know me know I've done that. It's kind of funny. It's kind of my thing. It's a bit. It's a shitty comedy bit, admittedly, but it sort of works. It makes a couple people laugh. So my kids probably hate it, but I amuse myself with it, which is all I really care about. So
How about we hit on either the options, what they mean, and the route sheets, or what to bring in and pack and actually bring on this event that's going to be an all-day foray.
Yeah, I think that's good. Let's go through that. So I'll talk about what I carry in my backpack, and I know it's less than you guys, so then we can. So in my backpack, I usually carry a cell phone, or it's actually my pocket. I have pants with pockets now. That's the other thing. You can get pants with pockets. You can just put your cell phone in your pocket. I carry pants. I have pants, so I have riding pants with pockets. So I have my cell phone in my wallet in my pocket. Backpack, I usually carry my stock KTM toolkit, and I usually carry a water pack, especially if we're doing an all-day event because you need water. And I may throw some snacks in there, and that's about it. But I know I'm not as well prepared as you guys are. The other thing that I started doing recently is I put last year. I have I still have to wire up the power to it on the KTM, but I think it's useful. And I know some guys are doing it. Some guys run GPS. I run I've been running I have an iPhone 7 with forget the name. Osmand is the name of the program installed on it. And you can, if events have GPX files, which a lot of them do now, you can load the GPX file onto that, and you can follow the GPS track. And the third thing is a route sheet. I would really recommend having a route sheet on your bike.
Yes.
Because that's kind of important to have. And the other thing that I just keep adding shit to my list of stuff that I bring with me. I started running a GoPro, but that's just personal preference to produce videos and stuff. Some of the video content, we have a YouTube channel, and some of the video content you've seen, you usually get yourself crashing, which is fun, and then
it's priceless.
It produces hilarious moments. And if you crash, if you swear when you crash like I do, then you can spend some time editing in iMovie. But that's my pack. But I know you guys bring other stuff, so
I would
we
say
should talk about yours.
Before Chris chimes in, I followed somewhere in between you guys and somewhere in the middle. So I carry what you've carried. We know the Camelback is a must, obviously.
Yep.
Some extra snacks. I carry a separate bag on my fender, which is a little heavy, but it's stuff that you're definitely going to want to need on a long day ride. You're going to want a tube that fits your front tire so you can use them both if you're running tubes. You want an air cracker with 2 CO2 canisters, some tire bars, tools that fit your bike, and I like to carry zip ties, some tape, like electrical tape, a knife in there, a light. I carry a tow strap in case you or your buddies break down. You're going to want to be able to get the heck out of there. So I have a tow strap somewhere. It's usually a piece of broken strap or something that I've had laying around. I kind of make a 15-foot strap so you can hook to a foot peg. I also carry my wallet, keys, phone, obviously. Just have space for your medications if you need any. I'm sure there's a few other things that I've forgotten that are in that bag, but just the necessities. So I would suggest having a separate bag on your bike somewhere besides just your pack that you can utilize for some extra necessities, extra fuses, even extra parts, like a lever maybe if you think you need it. Something that you can repair to be able to get out of the woods, which I've had to do countless times, breaking different things here or there.
Yeah, it's a good point. I know I'm not as prepared as I could be, but now we'll go to Chris because he's the most prepared out of anybody we know, probably.
I'm only prepared because my stuff has been, I keep adding stuff through the years as whoever I'm riding with, they break something and I don't have it on me. I always add it to my list of things to carry. And it varies. If I'm in West Virginia at Hatfield McCoy, riding in a single track in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to be carrying a lot more stuff compared to like if I'm doing the monkey butt ride where it's like 5 minutes to the next road or so. Quite a bit difference. I've ran ultra heavy duty tubes for a long time.
Yep.
I got sick of carrying a spare tube and tire irons. I switched to that tubeless, so I just carried my CO2 and some tire plugs. My tire plug kit also has patches for tubes for my friends that don't carry that stuff. I can still fix their bike. Now I've gone to moose, bib mooses, just because I ran a tire that got 2 events, got sliced up both tires within minutes of starting, and I had to run like 50 miles on a flat tire with a tubeless. So now I run strictly bib mooses. But if I'm in the middle of the mountains in West Virginia, I'll carry everything from a snake bite kit, first aid kit, and then my typical extra clutch and brake lever, rear brake lever, spare nuts and bolts, zip ties, safety wire. Motion Pro makes this really sticky tape which holds up to like pressure and heat, so you can wrap radiator hoses. So if you rupture the radiator hose, you can wrap this tape around it, fill it up with some water and a crick, and get you out of there.
Wow.
I still carry my Camelback with, the water in it and stuff, my cell phone, my wallet, tow rope. Oh, what else I got? I got my KTM tools and then a couple other tools, tire irons, even though I don't need them. That's if I am in the middle of nowhere. If I'm just doing the monkey butt ride with my moose bibs, I don't really carry anything anymore. Spare levers, nuts and bolts, master link, fuses, and that's really about it. Some energy bars, energy gummies, a rag, and a mask, like a bandana that I can use for a mask if it's dusty out. It's hard to say because my stuff stays packed in there most of the time.
Right.
But I think I covered it. I have a Tusk toe strap. I use that at the monkey butt. We use that constantly in West Virginia, just to hook it to the bars and to help pull bikes up hills. Not necessarily like towing a bike that broke down, but just to get the bike up a gnarly hill or like a really gnarly section. We'll just throw it across the bars and kind of, it's usually like 3 guys, one guy pushing the bike and 2 guys on the tow strap trying to pull the bike up. That's about it. I'm very happy. I used to have to carry tubes, and that just drove me nuts. I'll never go back to tubes again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's a discussion that we've all had a couple times. It's like tubes versus moose versus tubeless. And I, knock on wood, have had pretty good luck with tubes, ultra heavy duty tubes. But I'm probably running pressures that are too high, and that's probably why. But I know that's a good. That's actually, yeah. I mean, and the other thing I will, just to kind of like peel back the curtain a little bit here, is that I've been friends with Chris for years. I've done countless rides with him. I didn't even know that he had most of this stuff on him most of the time.
That's why he walks up. Hi guys, he's 300 pounds and he's clanking.
Yeah.
Yes, but
it does suck. I have a fanny pack, and then I have a Usui backpack that's filled.
Yep.
So it does get heavy. But like I said, I don't really wear all that stuff unless I'm really in the middle of nowhere. And if you guys if anybody's ridden Hatfield McCoy and has done the single track, you're on your own out there. So don't break down, because you're going to be shit out of luck.
The other thing too, I know this has come up in conversations with others. Specifically, I know that Matt Ryder, hey Matt, I know you're listening, has mentioned this. Is that like when you are like that far from home, like Western New York, West Virginia is Hatfield McCoy is a good 8-hour ride. So like, if you're making an 8-hour ride and you're going to be there for 3 days, you want to make sure your shit is like running, and you want to make sure that you can actually do the ride. So that's a good reason to have all that stuff on you as well. It's survival, but it's also like, okay, well, I'll make sure I made to spend all this money to go down here and all this time. I took time off of work. I want to make sure my stuff works. So That's
I wouldn't
another.
suggest doing these rides anything less than a 3 or 4 millimeter thick, ultra heavy duty tube,
Yep.
because you will end up with a flat. And an ultra heavy duty tube will also allow you to get down to those semi lower pressures around 10, 11 pounds, 10 pounds ish. Some people even go lower, but I wouldn't. Personally, I don't like going lower than 10 pounds, even an ultra heavy duty, when you get into the rock, especially.
It's about what I do too. But Chris, how low does what is a moose is even lower than that, right? Isn't a moose like somewhere in the 4 or 5 range? I think. Like, I know it's not real pressure, but I think it's something like that.
Pressure feel.
Yeah, well, I run that new tech nitro moose. So they have two different. They have like a higher pressure, which feels like a 10 to 12, and then they have a lower pressure, which feels 6 to 8. But honestly, I run the higher pressure ones because they do break down. So within like the second ride, they feel pretty good. And when I ran tubeless, I was running like 4 psi.
Okay.
And I know the motocross guys are like, what? Because they're running like 15 psi, 13 psi in their tubes. Which is fine for the track, but when you're getting into like the rocks and the roots, the lower the pressure, the more flex that the tire has, and the more it's going to hook up. But then you run this fine line, especially with tubes, where if you go down to low pressure, you're going to do what they call pinch flat, and it looks like a snake bite in the tube. So you pinch the tube and then you put 2 holes in it, and you got a flat tire then. So it's you have to balance the terrain. If you're riding over sharp rocks, you're going to have to up the pressure with the tube, and then when you up the pressure to prevent the pinch tubes, you're going to sacrifice traction. So a lot of guys will run the ultra heavy duty tubes, so you can run maybe like 8 psi, which is really good compared to 15, but it's not the 4 psi where you're going to get the phenomenal traction doing that. And again, you could probably run 4 psi if you're going slow over like rounder rocks, but if you start picking up speed and the rocks are square edged, then you're going to chance getting a pinch flat. So then that's where you would graduate to like a tubeless setup. And then when you're running the tubeless setup, the type of tire that you're using, some tires have a stiffer sidewall, so you could run lower pressure and not risk slicing the sidewall or something like that. Because then again, you're sacrificing slicing the sidewall, so you run more pressure, and then you're sacrificing traction again, but you're still down at the lower PSI range. And then you go to the mooses where you don't have to worry about getting flat tires, but then you really can't regulate the tire pressure. You're kind of just set with whatever feel that bib moose has. And you can actually drill holes in the bib moose to give it that lower tire pressure feel, or you can, what they do is they cut, like as the bib mooses wear, they shrink. Heat, friction wears the bib mooses down faster. That's why it's a good idea to keep them lubed, and not really good for roads. But these guys run these bib mooses in Baja, and if anybody's been paying attention, Baja is a very rough place. So if
Baja's no joke.
Baja, it's a good product. So the friction and the heat cause these bib mooses to shrink. So what you can do is you can cut it and you can add a wedge in there to push out and give you like a more firm, higher PSI feel to it. So they're more expensive. They're over $100 for each wheel for a bib moose these days. And it's not like you have to change them with every tire change. If you keep them lubed, if you keep them cool, stay off high speed road runs with them, they'll last you quite a while. And then you can just cut them and add a wedge in there and bring back that stiffer feeling to it. So that's what I've been using now.
The availability of these new gummy tires too, the technology has gotten like phenomenally better with these. So I
way
would
better.
suggest running a gummy tire
Yep.
in any situation, especially on at least the rear. Most
Mhm.
people don't run one in the front because it has too much flex. But in the rear, it's going to almost double your traction. It's going to be a new world for you if you've never used one.
Yeah, they seem to work pretty well.
If you're riding like single track with like rocks and roots and gnarly stuff, and you're riding a Dunlop MX-51 or something, you're doing it wrong.
Mhm.
You're going to be on a struggle bus. Again, if you're an A rider, you could do whatever with anything. But I'm talking about the guys that are still struggling with the riding. And even me, I've been riding for a long time, and I'm not all that great. I am not going to mount a Dunlop MX-51 with standard tubes at 18 psi because I'm going to be falling and sliding and just spinning my tires everywhere. Why would I want to do that? I'm gonna run the proper stuff and not kill myself on the trail or have a heart attack trying to push my bike or lift my bike up.
So we, just in case you'd be keeping notes, a DRZ 400 with trail wings TXC 80s is not that's sorry, a DRZ 400 with trail wings, which they used to call death wings, and the bike hasn't changed.
With 25 psi.
25 psi is not the setup you want to be running. Is kind of what we're getting at here. And I think, Chris, that might have been the most comprehensive breakdown of moose versus I didn't know most of that. So I would actually, I say that we listen back to these and I actually do it. I'm going to go, no shit, moose. Okay. Like I'm not gathering notes just for myself, but it may seem that way. So while we're still on the bike, because I think I was almost done with what I had on my list here. What about again, I'll go through my recommendations, then Chris will probably have some more, and Adam probably will as well. So the other thing I would recommend is that even when you buy a KTM, so you go out and you buy your brand new shiny, depending on what you get, say $10,700 KTM, right? You are still not done because it might have tires that are okay, and it probably might, and you probably need to do the heavy duty tubes like we talked about, but some kind of guards I think you really need to. Like at minimum, you need a skid plate. I used to run a plastic one. I switched to a metal one. Plastic one was cool because it took a beating and kept on going.
It was light.
I switched to an Enduro Engineering aluminum one, and that one works better, I think. But it especially because it's aluminum and there's probably padding or something I should have put in there. But it can be noisy. Reverberations off the engine can kind of make it noisy. The other thing is hand guards. You need to have some kind of hand guards on there. On my bike, I have bark busters of some type. Like KTM comes with flag hand guards, but I ain't gonna cut it for single track. So I think I run the just the plastic stock ones, and they make like an extension for them that make them wrap around, and I've been running those for a couple seasons now. But in terms of the protection I have on my bike, that's about it. I mean, my bike is mostly stock though. The only difference is that the tail light is not stock because I broke the stock one at the Monkey Butt in 2020 and had to replace it with something. So I just replaced it with a non-stock one, and the skid plate and handguards. That's about it. Otherwise, I'm running mostly stock stuff. But you really need handguards, and I know some guys run radiator braces. And then if you're on a two-stroke, you might want to run a pipe guard of some type. I think the KTM, at least I'm not sure about Beta and Sherco, but the KTM two-stroke pipes are pretty thick. But some guys still run like a carbon fiber one or a metal one anyway, just because like your pipe might be easy to replace, but your pipe getting smashed, and it actually has happened to me. When I rode a two-stroke KTM, your pipe getting smashed, you can't fix a smashed pipe on the trail. So again, we talked about like your preservation of your ride. You might want to run that as well. But that's the only thing that I can think of. I don't know if you guys run any other stuff.
Another little tip I would say is if you are doing some of these events, having your wheels balanced will add another level of comfort. When I first rode road sections without having wheels balanced, it has a weird vibrating effect, kind of like a gyroscoping kind of deal. After you balance them, it'll feel smooth as glass. They do sell these little weights that can go on there that bolt to your spokes if you wanted to do it like that. It definitely helps when you're on the road transfer sections.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a couple other things that I've bought besides uncorking a bike, but there's other little things that I've gotten beside I can't really think of right now that'll definitely help on a dual sport. I'll remember later, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
And
I
I'm sure
do.
there's gonna be. I'm sure there's people. I'm not balancing my tires. That's fucking stupid. When you're riding 100 miles in a day, 2 days in a row, every little thing will help because you're going to be exhausted. Steering
Yep.
damper is a huge one.
Yep.
Making sure your suspension is good is another big
Yep.
one. You're not doing a 15-minute moto and then sleeping half the day. This is 100 miles, and this isn't your little trail ride with your buddy on his blaster along the canal path or some bullshit. So every little thing helps. And then I see this online too, and I've even seen injuries with the motocross guys. I ain't using no wraparound bark busters. My arms will get stuck and break my arms up.
I've heard that too, and I always thought that was
People.
bullshit from day one.
Okay, well then let's lay your hand out on the table and let me whack it with a fucking hammer all day long, because that's what it's like riding without handguards in the woods with the trees. Don't hit the trees. Well, yeah, the trees are like 20 inches apart in some sections, so yeah, you're gonna be smashing your fingers on stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. If you've ever had a tree,
you know,
yeah, if you've ever had a tree come out, and you know that that's just not possible. So,
If you haven't hit a tree 3 times in an event, you're probably not going to finish the event for that day.
yeah,
and I've had some huge get offs. I've never had my arms tangle up the bars. You got to go full retard to be able to do that. And you also see videos, these people like whiskey throttle and launching their bike off a cliff into a stream. Your bike's underwater. I have no idea how these fucking people do that, but just stop. Yeah.
I think the guards is very important for sure. And side note, Chris is on fire tonight. He did just work today. Maybe that's why.
We should probably talk about what we're going to see on these route sheets and hero sections.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I don't have one in front of me. I wish I did. I'd probably pull it up my email. But yeah, so when you do these events, you're going to get a route sheet. And there are guys that will say, well, just follow the arrows. Well, I would recommend not doing that. I would spend the $30.
Well, you still do that.
You still follow the arrows,
yes.
But you also get
the idiot in front of me. So
yeah.
Yeah. So he passes the trail going down the road. I just follow him, and then the next thing we know, we're lost in the next town. So
a route sheet a route sheet holder is $30. I would recommend one because it gives you information. Like I just pulled up the one from the Monkey Butt because I'm sitting on my computer anyways. It gives you information on what's going on in the ride, so you know. I know we talked about GPSs, and GPSs are cool, but like the route sheet is still kind of your master. So like there are markings on the route sheet. This is the one from the Monkey Butt this past year, and it says L is left, right is right, R is right. Obviously, there's bear left, bear right, straight, and XXX, which is caution. The other thing it'll tell you is how far you are supposed to go. So I know, like, for example, I'm looking at the Monkey Butt and it says 0.0 is trail, right? And I know at 4.6, you have to make a right on the state Route 88, the highway. But that means that I know that when I get into that trail, that I'm doing that trail for 4.6 miles. And that means that for me anyway, personally, I like this because I know how far along I am into the ride. So like, if I'm on the trail and I crash at 2.0, I know I have another 2.6 miles to go. So, and the other thing it will tell you is like they do convey important information about it, about the ride. So there's the Monkey Butt one wasn't a great one to pull up for that, but I know that like the Misho one has crazy information about what you're doing. And let me actually open up the Misho one real quick here, because that has information about sometimes has information about hero sections. It's kind of it's kind of your like your master class to your ride. And for some reason I can't find the Misho one. It's
when you says reset to 0, reset to 0, because then you'll be off for your whole ride. So most trip computers that you'll have has trip 1 and trip 2.
Yep.
Trip 1 is your overall, so you just don't touch that for the whole day. You reset it to 0. let it go. You're going to stay on trip 2. And trip 2 is going to allow you to go up and down, at least on a KTM, and change your mileage if you're off. So when they say reset that to 0, you're going to reset your trip to 0 on the trip 2.
Yep.
And
I think
every
it's
event is different. So like some events, they are so fucking off with their mileage. And just to backtrack this route sheet holder, it's also called the roll chart. So it's basically this clear box that you would clamp on your handlebars, and the events will give you a strip of paper. Picture like a receipt from Rite Aid, the ones that are like 8 foot long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to have like your directions, kind of like a turn by turn would be like if your GPS had turn by turn printout, and your roll chart, you would actually roll it up kind of like camera film. So you roll it up into this roll chart holder, clamped to your handlebars, and it's got a thumb wheel, and you advance the thumb wheel, and you read the directions. So it'll tell you to start, start wherever you're starting from, turn left. It'll say at say 1.5 miles, turn left, and then some places will have like DR, meaning dirt road. Some will have like a TR for a trail, and every ride it's similar, but it's still different. There is no standard for this. So they usually put what each abbreviation means.
Yep.
So you have to follow your odometer on your bike, but whoever's doing this roll chart and writing all this stuff down might not be as accurate as your bike. So the KTMs on their trip 2 is actually adjustable. So if your roll chart is saying that you turn left at 1.9 and your trip is reading 1.6, you can actually adjust your computer to 1.9 so you stay on track. And that's the proper way to do it. I think I'm like the only one that really does that.
No, I started.
people just kind of either follow me or just follow the arrows.
Yep.
But on some events, you're going to have options or hero sections or another trail that breaks off of the standard trail that either bypasses something that's really hard, or there's an option where it's a harder trail. And when they join back up to the regular trail again, the mileages are going to be different. So they're going to have what they call a reset. So you reset your trip on your computer back to 0 because both of those mileages are going to vary. So that's why they have that reset there, and that's why it's important to do the reset.
Yep.
Some clubs, which I wish every club would do this, but the better the clubs that kind of have their act together more, on the arrows, say you're coming out of a trail and you're at a road, the arrow will point left or right on the road. Some clubs just put an arrow there, but the good ones will put like reset, or they will actually put the mileage on the arrow to where you're supposed to be. So if you are at like, mile 10 and you're going to be turning right, they write that on the arrow itself. So when you're looking at your roll chart, you know where you're at, where it's at mile 10, you're turning right. So you can keep track on your roll chart. And a lot of clubs don't do that. And, you kind of get lost because nothing's ever perfect. Your computer is different from the person who laid out the course. And then you start questioning, okay, well, where am I on my roll chart? The arrow says point left, but okay, that's great. But when you're going down the road, you might miss the trail off the road. You might drive right past it because your computer says you're at mile 10.5 and your roll chart saying that you're going to turn left into the woods on the trail at like 10.9 or whatever, and you're going to miss that turn. So that's kind of important to keep on track with that, but it's also important for the clubs. They really need to write that stuff on the arrows. The monkey butt is really good with that. The Shaw, that's like one thing that I would recommend Michelle, those guys doing that would be to write the mileage down.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I would say the single most important information that it has on there is when the snack stop is and where the free ice cream, garbage plates, and barbecue happens on the
Also
event.
very important. Also very important.
Yeah.
So the other things that you may find on one of these, and again, it depends because I had the monkey butt one up and I had the DVTR one from Micho up. You may like it tells you where it tells you like the Micho one has, and you typically will have this as well. Has like emergency phone numbers for call people, and sometimes they'll even have radio operators on the course if they're in places where there is no cell service, which yes, that does still happen even the year 2023. The other thing it will tell you is like, where the gas stop is. That's important too. I just gonna mention that real quick. Like you should never really pass up a gas
Fuel
stop.
up for crying
Fuel
out
up.
loud.
Fuel up. It happened to
Yeah.
our buddy. It happened to our buddy Warren.
Warren
Elcar's ADV
Yeager,
on
Elcar's
YouTube. Yeah.
ADV.
He
Pay
ran out of
attention,
gas.
Get gas.
Yep. He ran out of gas and he had to ask a farmer to give him gas. And the guy did probably laugh his ass off. I would. But the
Sure,
other
I
thing
got
is,
some 85 in the back.
I mean, who knows what it was? Yeah, who knows? But the other thing that it tells you that, and that's important. And there's other kinds of information on this. I've only seen 2 of these, admittedly, but the other thing I would suggest with a roll chart route sheet is roll that sucker tight. If you don't roll it tight, it will flop around and it will not work. I do speak from experience on that one.
Yeah, Alan, how do we mount a roll sheet?
You cut the paper and then you tape it around the edge, and some guys will also put tape across the whole thing to keep rain from getting to it. I usually check the weather before I do that, but there are different ways you can do it, but yeah, it's just kind of, I think we've beat the topic of roll charts to death, but actually we haven't, because I'm looking at this Micho one and it mentions option 1. So options are like in some events you may have them, and they're different depending on the event certainly, but they're like sections of trail that are not part of the main route. So like you could probably do the entire Micho route on the main trail on one of those bikes that we were talking about earlier, and not talking bad about, but saying they wouldn't be good for events like this. Like, yeah, I probably could do the whole thing on a DR650. An experienced rider could do the whole thing on a DR650. Even an experienced rider at our level, where we're still slow, could do the whole thing on a DR650 if you stick to the main trail. If you go into the options, which are like trail sections, which I mentioned at Micho, are actually hiking, like they're actually hiking trails that the club gets to use because they do a very good job of maintaining it. And some sections are harder than others, certainly, but they are like sections of trail that, in Micho are a couple miles. They're called hero sections in some events, but they're basically like extra stuff that you can do if you want the challenge. Yeah.
And that's what's awesome that I really like with these dual sport events. You could be a total squid and suck ass, and the regular trail is perfect for you to get your feet wet.
Yep.
But for somebody that has experience, we'd be bored as fuck out riding this stupid shit. So they throw in these options to keep the more experienced guys entertained, I guess you could call it.
Yep.
And that's what's perfect with these dual sports. They are for everybody.
Yep.
So that's why I highly recommend it. And as you get older, your motocross injuries start to hurt.
Yep.
And you get more bang for your buck. Not to put down like the motocross races. There is nothing more exciting than when that gate drops. You're on that starting gate, everybody's bikes are revving, and that gate drops, and your stomach just, your stomach drops, and you are off. There's no better feeling than that. But it gets to a point where your body hurts. So why? I could understand getting out of the motocross. I just don't understand hanging up the gear and selling the bike.
Yeah.
Trade the bike in, get a different bike, come join us with the dual sports. The camaraderie is still there. You're still hanging out with your buddies, but you are not riding. Motocross, you ride 12 minutes for practice. You sit around all fucking day long. You do a 12-minute moto. You stand around for all fucking day long, and then you do another moto, and then you go home. Unless you sign up and do extra classes But then you're looking at
More money.
you
Yep.
know, it's what's
For the same
class
amount
now?
of money as 120 miles of riding.
Yep.
Same
Yeah.
same amount.
Yeah, you can ride all day long for the same amount of money. You don't get that plastic trophy. You don't get that feeling when the gate drops. But so fucking what? You're riding
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
don't
obviously
get it.
with you. I'm obviously with you on that.
Yeah.
And like I said, it is because I know that we've had this discussion in our friend group too. It obviously is a different experience. Like, you know, like I said, some people go to McDonald's and buy a bunch of stuff off the value menu for $15. And some go to, you know, some expensive restaurant and get a nice steak for 55. And it's a different experience. But you know, I know certainly that there are advantages and disadvantages to each. I tend to side more with you on this, by the way.
I would ride in if you're first going to one of these events, to ride in a small group of guys that you either know or have some experience in this, that don't mind taking somebody similar to their skill level along to show you the ropes. Because not only is it a more enjoyable day, you're going to have somebody to talk to and bullshit with and help you if needed. But it's not something you're going to want to struggle with on your own if you've never been through this before and you're not familiar with something, and make a choice that might end up you on the ground in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
I have never been to an event where somebody felt like they had to ride alone. There is a group that you can fit in. Whatever skill level you're at, whatever speed you want to go, you will never be on your own at a dual sport event.
That is very true.
And it's very important to ride in groups too, because if you have a bike issue or if you can't get over an obstacle, you're going to have that help.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is very true. I would say that like it is a great groups of people at all the events, you know, like the Monkey Butt is kind of our hometown event, but even when we go to Misha, we're just out of towners coming in to hang out, like you always feel welcome. So I think it's very true. I think that a lot of it is tied to the culture of the clubs that put it on. And some are more friendly than others, certainly, but like it's definitely, it definitely is a good group of people. And yeah, I mean, people say that motocross people are incredibly nice and will help you with anything, and that is absolutely true, by the way. But the same is also true with dual sports. People were more than willing to help you if you need it. So, you know, it's one of the reasons that you have maybe a KTM, so that you don't have some weird bike that no one else has parts for. Because if something goes wrong, there's a chance somebody has a part. You know, I remember like we were at the Monkey Butt. I think Chris, you might have left, or you were packing up, and Adam and I were standing around, and Kevin Picola is a guy we've known for years. He just comes over and he just hands me and Adam each a cold beer. Like, just, you know, we didn't even ask him for it. He's just like, hey guys, good ride today. And he just handed us a cold beer. One of the classiest moves I've ever seen. You know, I thought it was a pure class move.
I had a guy in Pennsylvania give me one of their local beers too. I mean, it's just a camaraderie thing. You know, it's like sitting around the campfire. This is the whole reason we started this podcast. I mean, you get a bonus. You get to camp out with your friends too. You're usually camping out of the event, or some people get a hotel or Airbnb or something like that. But camping out there, if you can, is definitely, I mean, it's bench racing. That's what it's about at the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I know the last couple of times we've done it, we've stayed off site, but I think next time I want to actually camp on site and just like hang out with people. So, because that's the whole point of, you know, one of the points of doing it for sure. So definitely. So I'm looking at our list, and we've kind of gone through.
Kind of covered most everything, unless you want to hit dual sport no-nos.
I think we covered a lot of no-nos already.
Pretty much.
Unless, how about this? What if we all, what if everyone tells one of their favorite stories from a dual sport? And I can guarantee you that there's a chance that the other, there's as good of a chance that we're all in these stories as we're not. So I don't know who wants. I don't want to go first. So I'll let you guys go first. Maybe I'll think of something. No, I don't. Because I can't think of anything. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. So
I would say the funniest damn moment was when you blew up your motor at one of these events, and we had a group of about 15 people, and Alan's. I could tell he was struggling already with his clutch was pretty burned out. So we get to like the last section of the day, and there's only one section left. So Alan says, well, I'm going to finish out. I'm going to try to get back to the parking area. So it's maybe about, I don't know, 400 yards down the road. So we're all there on the edge of the road, and he gets going. This clutch is completely smoked. He's going about 2 miles an hour, smoke billowing out the back. The motor's wound to the moon. And there was a guy on, what the heck was he riding?
An XR, an old XR or XL, something like that.
Some kind of old XR or XL, real small motor. He's just staring at Alan as Alan's got the wound to the moon. And he's just riding past Alan like, why is that guy going so slow? But it sounds like he's going so fast. And Alan made it about, I don't know, a couple 100 feet to the end of the ride when that motor exploded.
It was, so that was the monkey. That was the monkey butt 2013. And I was just trying to get it back to the car because I knew it was hosed. Or that there was something going on.
I'm sure there's a lot of stories I remember. I just can't remember them right at the moment.
I had it revved out, and that was I was just trying to make it back, and I almost made it about a couple 100 yards from the finish. I heard it go, and I knew it was done. Turns out that there was a clip, there was like a metal clip that was part of the crankshaft that just let go, and that's what caused and I had to rebuild that whole motor from the top. So.
One of the other things I did do is I did the entire event at one time, 100 miles on an 83 KTM.
Mm-hmm.
That was one crazy. Year when that's the only bike I had. And I remember going downhill. I think it was Dave Seisnall's brother or something like that. Somebody had like a 78 Suzuki, or it was.
I want to say Gary McFarland's brother.
Gary McFarland's brother. Yeah. Okay. So we're both going down a hill. Yeah. Somehow we ended up on this downhill at the same time. Now, these are old bikes. These are drum brakes. I mean, this is not the kind of technology we have nowadays. We're both on this downhill. There's only room for one bike. And we actually had our bars inside, almost touching each other's body because there was no extra room. I'm like, I'm just trying to stop. I'm like, I'm sorry in the way. He's like, no, I'm just trying to stop too. And we're hauling ass down this hill. Full bore on these drum brakes, can't stop, only room for one bike. And that's the closest I think I've ever been to somebody in a race or a ride ever. I mean, shoulder to shoulder on these old ass freaking bikes trying to stop and going on this hill.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, you can go ahead, Chris. I have one now, but I'll let you tell yours first, so I'll tell the same one.
I mean, the only there's a few things that come to mind. Not so much during an event. Most of the time it's just my most memorable is riding with you guys. It's either Alan losing his fucking mind in the middle of the woods. And there's this running joke where, because if you don't know Alan, he's like 8 foot tall. He's like a fucking Sam Squatch, and when he yells, it like echoes through the whole forest. And if he's hung up on a log or something and he gets pissed off, and he just screams, and I swear to God, like you see the crows flying out of the trees, and like,
thanks guys.
It's like straight out of a movie. Just you hear the roar of like a Sasquatch or something, and it's like every time we go to Adam's cabin up near like the Tug Hill area, and there's this we call it a Jeep trail, and
the
last part of it's pretty gnarly. It's no longer a Jeep trail. It's like just fend for yourself, last man standing type of thing. And
middle of nowhere.
Every year we go up there once a year, and every year something happens. Either Alan falls in the water and gets hung up, and it's just Bigfoot screaming.
Yep.
You see like trees bending as he's going through the woods. And then at the same place, Tug Hill, at Adam's cabin, Adam, his bike flames out, and it's just you can hear you can hear like the bike stall, and it's kind of in gear. You can hear that like click where it flames out, and then you just hear no, and then
somebody gets the water every year.
Yeah, it's
the water cross. Yeah. And then I've even been a victim to it. Trying to walk across like the Beaver Dam to help somebody get their bike across. I lose my footing and I fall backwards into the water. And this is in the fall. It's fucking cold, and then you fall. You're soaking wet, and it sucks. But it's still good time. For sure. It's funny.
Yeah.
I still chuckle at the monkey butt where I can't remember if it was.
It was a lady,
Alan.
and he was broken his fender. That the one he was talking about. He was the first section, and it was me and you and a couple other people waiting for Alan. And some lady from the event came up, and she was asking us questions or something, and somebody randomly asked, "Did you see a Sasquatch in the woods back there?" And she's like, "No." Like, oh, we're looking for a Sasquatch, and he was supposed to be with us, and she was like all confused.
I didn't know that. That's funny. Yeah,
it was
that's
on
funny.
when we had all those big hill climbs right out of the gate, like the first.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I was following Kyle, and I didn't know how good of a rider
That's
Kyle
where you
was, and
broke
I was
the
like,
fender. We were
whoa,
waiting.
over my head. Yeah, somebody ran into me coming
Did
up
you
the
see a
hill.
Sasquatch back in there? Like, she's like, no.
Yeah. So
And the one time at the Monkey Butt 100, I can't remember if it was Alan or Mark, but somebody's clutch was smoked, and I just remember them going. We're parked. We're sitting, taking a break at like where the trail comes to a road, and either Alan or Mark had to take the road back because their clutch was smoked, and I just remember them going.
That's the same story Adam just told. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was Mark too, because didn't Mark Bardine have an issue too with his clutch?
He may have, yeah.
So it was just funny because for those that don't know who Alan is, he looks like a fucking circus bear because he's like 8 foot tall. He looks like a circus bear on a little bicycle. So you just picture this circus bear on a bicycle, wound out like fifth gear, wide open, screaming, but he's only going like 10 miles an hour because the clutch is slipping. He's like ducked down for like more aerodynamics, trying to go down this road, and it's freaking hilarious.
I didn't realize that when I opened up this topic, it was going to lead to destroying me for 10 minutes, but that's okay. So I'm going to switch gears and talk about one of my favorites. Because I think there's a couple. I think actually this one's years old. I mean, this is before my daughter was even born. It's how we know how old it is. But Chris and I did the first monkey butt. If you don't know we talked about the monkey butt a lot, and the monkey butt used to be the Newark Enduro, which we were going to talk about the difference between enduro and dual sport. We didn't get to it, but basically an enduro is a timed race event, right? And a dual sport is not. It's a short version. But anyways, so they changed it from enduro to dual sport because the dual sport's a lot less work. It's a lot more popular. It's a lot less pressure. So this is when the monkey butt was a one-day event, and it rained all day Saturday, and into Sunday morning. So we started the monkey butt, and it was just slop and skating all over for I'd say about 35 miles before we reached the point where we bailed. And the thing I remember is going to the snack stop, the second snack stop, which is over by Hogback, and Karen, I know her name now. I didn't know her name for years, but Karen, the snack lady from WCMC, she was there, and we went to get snacks, and she's like, "Yeah, you guys are like some of the only people to show up here," because it had rained all day. So that's one. And I think, I don't know. I actually forgot about blowing up my bike that year. I guess that is kind of funny in retrospect. It was about a $700 to rebuild the motor that year, though. Actually, I did think of another one. The monkey butt has not been kind to my bikes. Knock on wood, these past 2 years it was okay, but there was one year where I smacked a tree with my KTM 200. I dented my pipe pretty bad. And the thing I remember is, again, Mark, when he used to ride with us, Mark laying on the ground, kicking my pipe to bend it back into shape. And I was able to finish the day, but I had to buy a new pipe and silencer. So yeah, monkey butt, not kind to my bikes.
There's a lot of good stories, but a lot of it involves like the local woodchucks get out for these events.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're usually all squirrely out there or smoking a bunch of weed, and they get all screwed up. And usually every good story starts with some goofball that some local decided to join the dual sport, and
that is for sure
something crazy.
Yep. All right, so
I do remember that mud ride. There was like 3 ruts from that mud ride. The middle rut for the tires, and then a rut on each side because everybody was dragging their feet. And that was the first time I've ever seen that for the entire event. There were 3 ruts for the whole. I don't know what it was at that time. It was probably like 85 miles or 90 miles or something.
Yeah.
That was the first time I've ever seen that happen. That was pretty gnarly.
It was pretty nasty, and it was not. I don't think it was a very fun ride either. So I guess now we can jump into we're all here together. Normally I would cut this, but we'll just jump right into it because we're all together anyways. And jump into news in WNY, and it's kind of short because it's winter and there's not much going on.
I got a plug.
Okay, what's the plug?
If you need Girl Scout cookies, I have Girl Scout cookies out the wazoo for you.
Okay. All right.
Just you can email me at ags72@yahoo.com, or even throw me a text at 585-530-9848 and buy from my daughter Ember. Please
Nice.
buy a ton of Girl Scout cookies
Yes.
because it is Girl Scout cookie season, and this is all that the Girl Scouts seem to be about this time of year.
Yep.
And if you want cookies, I got cookies for you.
Sweet.
Buy
Sweet.
from her, please.
I'll have to hit you up for that. So if you're listening to this, because people can listen to this all different times, it's January 16th, 2020, or it's recorded on January 16th, 2023, and should be posted within a couple of days of that. So if you're listening to it right around the middle of January, Adam's got Girl Scout cookies for you.
Get your fix. You got them.
Yes.
You want them. I got them.
For sure. So the other stuff that's going on is that the Empire State MX Banquet is February 11th, 2023. That is back live in person in its usual place. They are good to go.
That's a good time, man.
I've never been.
Even if you, it's so much fun. And
it
they
is good.
usually
I've been
have,
there
like,
once.
A silent auction or something. There's a bunch of raffles, and there's a lot of good shit you
Lots.
could win.
Yep.
Yeah,
Braden
and
brought
good
home
food,
like
too.
$500 of shit there one year. It's a freaking good time if you've never been.
Yeah.
Our friend
Are they
Chris
still
Liddell.
raffling the bike or no?
I
think they
that was
do, right?
I don't
They
know.
used
I
to.
have no idea. I don't know.
I think they
I
do
don't
it
It
every
used to
year.
be like Don George's. Yeah, but they used
Yeah.
to be by Don George's, and Don George's, they closed up. They
Yeah,
were
way
done,
something-
so I don't know what's with that.
So the way something like that would work, and I only know it because Hogback did something similar, is that basically the district would probably buy the bike, and then they would raffle it off. And I don't know there's nothing mentioned on their website about that, so we'll have to say that they're probably not doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't know
Chris
for sure.
Adolfo won that one. We had him on, and him and
He's-
his mom on.
Yep, we have both of them. And actually, Chris still has that bike. That was like 11 years ago, and he still has that bike. That's why
It's
I told him
worth going
Yeah.
every year just to watch somebody's wife get piss ass drunk and break a tape. It happened when we went, and I've heard it happen many other times since. Somebody always drinks too much.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, it's that's what you do with those things like that. So the other thing about Empire State and MX, and this is also true of WNYMA, is that schedules for 2023 are not out yet. Because I'm advising to the board of Hogback, I have actually seen the schedule, but I can't talk about it. And it's not finalized yet anyways. But there's some events, there are some dates that are being thrown about, but they are not finalized yet. I actually looked at this, so WNYMA does not have theirs out yet either. So it sounds like both districts are still working on dates. So more to come on that with the next episode, maybe.
I would
Noah
say stay tuned.
Stay tuned,
Because
yep.
we've been putting a list together on the Dirt Eaters 2.0 Facebook page.
Yep.
There's a really comprehensive list of anything and everything that's been going on, not only in Western New York, but in our whole area. And that includes like pro motocross all the way down to like enduros, hair scrambles, and our favorite dual sport rides. So check out the Dirt Eaters 2.0 Facebook page. Like it, whatever. Join.
I'm going to pin that.
I'm
going to pin that to our Benchracer's Guild page 2. Yep. Benchracer's Guild 2 page 2, because that's good stuff. And that way, hopefully, it gets edited, and that when you make changes, it'll go. Chris is the maintainer of this list, and it is quite comprehensive. He's got a bunch of stuff on there. So Noah's schedule is out. They start May 7th, so you can plan for that. I know one big thing that does start is Loretta's qualifiers start in March. Our friends Matt and Jessica Hicks are doing that, but I don't know anything about that because I know that there is a new hair scramble series starting up called the NEXC. And I think they just have like a flyer at this point. NEXCseries@gmail.com. It looks like they're running in April. They're running in June. They've got some stuff in July and October. So looks like Broom is involved and a bunch of tracks that I don't know anything about because I've never heard of them. But they're running quads and they're running They're running quads and bikes, and they are in northeast PA and southern New York, I'm assuming. So there's that coming out. New Hare Scramble series, and I think some dates for stuff have been finalized, but it's just so far out that we don't need to get into it now, I guess. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, actually, applications for Hogback are still open. There's a lot already in. They close in a couple weeks though, and renewals for Hogback have been out for like 3 weeks, and if you don't have it in, get it in because you should have it in already. I timed it. It literally takes like under 30 seconds to do. You log in, you click 1, you click 2, you click 3, you open up your thing, you click the renewal, and then you send us your payment. It's super easy. And we have a bunch of them in already, but there's still a lot that are not in. So if you're renewing, please do it. If you don't do it online for some reason, you just let us know, but you should be able to do it.
If you're even a trail rider looking to ride over the winter, because there's not a lot going on, Demon Run runs all winter long. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to get out your snow tires and go give it a go, it's a great little place to ride for a day. And
here in mid-January, he may not have any snow, so that might actually be a good place to go. So, yep.
Majestic Trails in Bradford, PA, too. They ride
all year.
I don't think they have much snow. Yeah, that's open all year round. They close for hunting season, but that's already gone and past us, so they're open. They do have some ice, like on the backside of the hills where it doesn't get much sun, but the rest of the trails are good. You're definitely going to need some sort of studded tires. Probably if you're on a dirt bike. If you're on a dork wheeler, you should be okay. You'll probably be spinning, but that's what you guys like to do anyways.
The donuts on the trails.
Ice racing. I mean, ice racing.
Check out Western New York ice riders. They ride out in like Irondequoit Bay.
Irondequoit Bay,
yeah. Tom Cox makes ice tires. You can go contact, I believe his Facebook name is Tom Will now, but contact Tom Cox if you need some ice tires made up. Jeff Jackson's out there. He's a really good flat tracker that goes out there. There's a lot of fast guys. Even if you don't ride or don't want to ride, it's super cool to go watch those guys. You're talking 5th, 6th gear wide open, and they lean the bike right over on the ice, and there is more traction with Tom Cox tires on the ice than there is a crotch rocket on regular asphalt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just phenomenal what they do on the ice. It's fun to watch. It's cold as fuck. Go out there for like 20 minutes, whatever, to go watch. If you want to ride, there's a tip jar. Bring some money. Tip the guys that plow the course, because the guys are out there plowing, beating the shit out of their 4-wheelers trying to plow the course. But check out Western New York Ice Riders for that. That's a good time. Pretty much, or get your bike ready for the new season coming up.
Yep, that's what I'm doing with mine. I don't do ice, but I will do that. The other thing I will tell you about that spot in that spot in Irondequoit, I think it's Irondequoit actually, maybe it's Webster. It's also just a cool place. It's just a cool place to go. I've gone hiking in the woods near there, and it's just like this beautiful scenery and stuff. So even if you go just for that, recommend it. I've never actually been, but I've heard it's cool. So it's one of those things that I don't think it's like officially allowed, but they kind of just look the other way. So
I go for the hot coffee and Bailey's out on the ice.
You can do that too.
There you go. Yeah,
do that too.
Just hang out and just warm and
that's
hang
what
out.
I go for.
If you want to ride some trails like Majestic's open, you can do. You get some. They're called grip studs. They screw right into a knobby tire. You could get. It's a little expensive, but you bend over once, pay for it, and then you're good to go. Or you could contact. I got a guy out of Connecticut, Mike's Studded Tires. He's on Facebook. He makes studded tires. If you race, they have like some enduros going on in the wintertime. He makes different studded tires with different lengths depending on if there's just frozen ground, you get short studs. If there's deep snow, you get longer studs. He builds tires for you. Tom Cox will do it as well. But if you're looking for ice racing, Tom is the guy to see. Or if you want to do it yourself, just get those grip studs that screw into the tire.
Yep.
Screw a bunch in, spend a couple $100, and you get to ride all year round. There's no reason to park your bike for the winter time and get fat. So do it up.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. All right, I think we've covered everything we could have possibly gotten.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think so.
Cool. All right, well, I guess, and we've also hit about the time limit where we start losing people's attention. So, all right, you
enjoy dual sport for dummies.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna call it, I think. So, all right, always say,
don't hang it up, guys. Come join us. And if not,
we'll see you out there, hopefully. So,
if we don't see you at dual sport, hopefully we'll catch you at the races.
Yep, sounds good. All right, we say we'll see you.
See you at the races.
See you at the races.